Good. How are we? We okay? Enjoying it? Yep. How many Scousers in the room? Oh, good. Oh, shit. That's room 4 of my jokes already, to be quite honest. So, listen, it is an absolute honour. I'm going to jump down here because I keep walking in front of that. It's an absolute honour to be asked or to be selected to give a talk. As you may guess, I'm from Liverpool. I'm from Walton originally. No, not the prison. Thank you very much. About 3 miles down here. And it is a joy to see a tech environment growing up throughout Liverpool. Because when I was a kid growing up through the 80s, the closest I got to technology was somebody chipping your digital signal so you could get free Sky or free broadband or something like that. To see it as a cybersecurity discipline and to see people working in it and it's starting to thrive is an absolute joy. I unfortunately left when I was about 21. It's about 6-7 years ago. I now live in Bath, but it's great to come back home. It's still home for me. Just before we go any further, Blues? Anyone? No? Reds? Yes. Here we go. Tranmere, yeah. Me and Kenny Hines went to school. So me and Kenny Hines played in the same school team, which takes me on to my next slide. It's almost like we worked it. So, a little bit about me. 2 slides to talk about my background a little bit. I've been in security about 25 years. Although I wanted to be a professional footballer like everybody in Liverpool. That's me in the blue. That's me in the blue playing at Wembley back in 2000 in the FA Vars final. Got beat 1-0, cried like a big girl. So, like Gascoigne. And on the other side of the screen, that is me with not 2 of the 7 dwarfs, with Ant and Dec on it wasn't even a quiz show. It was a game of luck, red or black it was. And essentially, you got to the end, and if you were the last person standing, you had a red or black decision for £1 million. Guess which I chose? Yeah, because I'd have been here if I had £1 million, right? No, I would have been. It's great to. It is great to come back home. What this talk is about is the idea that vendors keep telling us that the more logs we collect, the more information we collect, there's got to be something in there for us. I understand that there is a use case for logs and log collection, right? I'm not saying we can't do what I'm going to talk about without it. What I am saying, though, is that a lot of vendors and a lot of their hype and a lot of what they tell you, and they talk about data lakes this and log collection that and correlation the other, is largely bullshit. Now, I will swear from time to time, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that. If you are offended by it, you've got about 20 minutes or so left of it, and then you can get on with your day after that. It's really, I'm slightly inoffensive, I think. So, just to describe and frame the issue, and you've probably heard it, MSSPs trot it out all the time. What I want to try and dispel is this needle in a haystack nonsense, because it is nonsense. When today's attackers come into your network, they are hiding in plain sight. They're hiding in the noise. So when you're looking for a needle in a haystack, you're actually looking for another bit of hay. It's more hay amongst hay. And how do you spot that? And how do you accurately and sensibly use your time and your resources to get to that hay? So that's what I'm going to be focused on. This is almost akin to the old adage, the old story. Come in, we're just killing time till you got here. The old adage, the old story of the girl who wakes up in the morning, goes into the room. There's a whole room full of horse shit. She wants a pony for a birthday, and she's digging through the horse shit with the mentality that there's got to be a pony in here somewhere with this much horse shit. It's the same type of approach, right? Too much swearing? Not enough? No? Okay. Not enough. Okay. Well, you asked for it. Let me make sure. So some of the whys. Why is it difficult? One of the big ones is alert fatigue. The noise becomes the threat. When you collect every log that is available to collect, and Splunk would love you to collect every single log that is available to collect, the noise becomes the threat. The attackers know this. We know this in the advanced detection, the advanced threat detection side of things, and they quite happily hide in that noise. Alert fatigue is a common problem. With detective controls, we still focus on prevention with detective controls. And I know prevention is better than cure, but actually we need to get better at it. We need to have proper true detection. We need to kind of be a bit more like Columbo instead of taking what the screen says. We need to be a bit more, and just one more thing. That's the only impression I ever do, by the way. That and Paul Daniels, but he's dead now, so I can't do it. So we need to get cuter about it. We need to understand the technologies we're being sold or the technologies we're using and what they can do for us rather than what the salespeople have told us they can do. And we need to have a more proactive approach with those technologies. Listen, IDS has been about for years, right? It's a perfect example of our industry. Intrusion detection systems have been about for years. When Gartner came out in 2004-05 and said intrusion detection was dead, what did the industry do? Did we go away and innovate? No, we changed the D to a P and we called it intrusion prevention systems, and they were still the same things. We just stuck them in line. That's the absolute difference with it. Alan, I'm going to call you out a little bit. Alan and I were talking about it before. We do not innovate in our industry enough. We need to start thinking outside the box, which is why when Omri gave his presentation earlier today, I was so pleased that somebody started talking about serverless and the new ways of working. You haven't missed much, guys. I was just asking about, really, to be quite honest. So it really is difficult to identify a hacker on your network. You know, gone are the days when there's a script kid who's banging on your front door or wandering through your network, smashing bin lids together, telling everybody of where their presence is. Most hackers are going to, like I say, come in via the noise, bypass your controls, and then start living off the land. If you don't know what living off the land means within an attacker context, it means what are the tools that are at their disposal on the network already or on the systems like PowerShell and things like that, where they can move laterally from machine to machine to where they need to get to. And we are really difficult with that from a post-breach strategy of actually being able to spot that and actually look at the ways of being able to capture it. Sean talked about it earlier on in TrapX, detection type controls or honeypots or honey nets, if you're old enough to remember them, are one way to do it. Also, there's a lack of evidence. It's the who, what, why, where, when, and how type questions afterwards. In this propensity to capture everything that goes on the network, we're still not doing enough with answering those questions. Primarily, I believe, because we're not focusing enough time in the skills and the expertise of the people who do it, and we want to rely more on the machines or the technology. You know, if you don't fully understand how to do what you're doing, you're not going to fully understand how to get the best out of that machine or that bit of technology. And then ubiquitously, the lack of skills resource. We are in an industry that we hear this all the time. My wages aren't going up despite of it, by the way, but we are in an industry where we hear this all the time. And I think it's a slight misnomer because, yes, we have a lack of skills resource, but I think it's the actual skills to do the types of things we want to do, because we're still doing the same thing we did 20 years ago and expecting different outcomes. And that, my friends, is the idea and the actual definition of idiocy. It really is. So the so what question, where we concentrate, throwing money away. Where we concentrate is on the dwell time issue. Now, it doesn't matter who you listen to, whether it's that figure comes from Gartner or whether it's FireEye. FireEye publish a 99-day figure. Anywhere between 3 months and closer to 9 months is a pretty big average dwell time that somebody will be on your network just pleasing themselves, wandering about, moving from machine to machine, not being caught. And when you think it's not going to happen to me, well, you know, we only have to bring the big names, Equifax, Target, Citrix, pick any one of them. A lot of them had this dwell time issue. I think Target, in fact, were told by Dell SecureWorks was their MSSP, I think, at the time. They told them there was some suspicious activity several times because of the alert volume and because of the issue with the noise, and they became anesthetized to it. They didn't do anything about it. They then became the subject of a massive breach. And more often than not, nearly 60% of the time, the indications of the breach or the dwell time does not come from an internal source. Citrix is a perfect example. It was an externally security researching firm that told Citrix about it, and then Citrix did some tap dancing show about it being the FBI that told them. Yeah, depends who you want to believe there. But the real goal here is to reduce that dwell time, because studies have shown that actually if you can reduce the dwell time, and you can't see that there, but that's from the Aberdeen group. They did a bit of research back in 2016. And if you can get it and contain it and spot it and do something within a day, the actual reduction in the cost to your business is magnificent. Get 60 days out, and you've got a full business impact, whatever that may mean to the business, whatever those costs mean to the business. I'm not going to tie figures to that because everybody tries to do that. Every business is different from that point of view. I will say that every business is different, i.e. they're in it to do different things. Security, the way they're hacked, the way they get in, the way they move around, TCP/IP is the same in every business, by the way. It is no different. No difference. No business is special from that point of view. So you can see, trying to eliminate dwell time or catch it as soon as possible is an important side of things. 3 fundamental truths I think that we need moving forward in our industry. You need an assumed breach. You are going to be breached. If you're not breached, you will be breached soon. And why is that? Largely, the background image there is supposedly, I know it's a Great Wall of China, but supposedly to evoke a castle, a perimeter approach. Organizations still have a perimeter approach to security. They want to build higher turrets, thicker walls, wider and deeper moats, when the enemy has either got somebody already on the inside or has learned to fly. So you're not defending against the right things. So you need to assume that. And if you're not going to be breached, guess what? You're probably your third party is going to be breached. CloudHopper, perfect example. Has anybody seen the CloudHopper report around the MSSPs? Thank you very much. If you haven't seen it, go to my LinkedIn feed. There's a bit on there. It was just released by the Reuters guys. Really great bit of work. Talked about top 8 MSPs in the world. Every single one of them compromised from their third-party infrastructure, which then went on to compromise their customers. And these are the people you put your trust and security in, by the way. These are not small names. These are not startups you've never heard of. These are the big boys. Another fundamental truth, we are the weakest link. Mitnick said it, there's no patch for stupidity. It's really true. It doesn't matter how many times I tell my dad not to click on a link in an email. I must have rebuilt his PC 3 or 4 times. And you know what? The one thing that you can never recover from is seeing your parents' internet surfing history. Just absolutely kills you. It really does. Honestly, I just need a moment. And finally, insecure software is eating the world. If it wasn't, we wouldn't have a career. Bless them. Bless those coders. But we still do it today, right? We still do it. You know, somebody will talk about GitHub, somebody will talk about code repositories, we're using somebody else's code most of the time. We're accepting that that's okay. We're not doing really any checks on it. Holistically, we may stick 3 or 4 modules together and go, does that do what I want it to do? Yeah, brilliant. Let's not worry about everything else, because that's a bit of a cost we don't really want to think about at this moment in time. But as long as those 3 elements are there, you will be breached. People will do dumb shit. And we've got insecure code. We'll always have a career. Great news, folks. So, I've set a scene. I've given you an idea of why I think just using a logs only approach is a little bit dark ages, can I say? What next? Where must we go from an evolution point of view? And it is evolution, it's not innovation. Again, something we were talking about earlier on. I think most organizations are in that left-hand side. and not doing that left-hand side very well. Whether you're an MSSP or not, or whether you're an internal customer trying to build their own internal SOC, which again puzzles me slightly. Slightly puzzles me that why people want to reinvent the wheel. I get the use case for certain ones. I do get it for big organizations. However, I think a lot of it is hubris. I think a lot of it is a CISO trying to make a name for himself most of the time, if I'm going to be honest with you, or a CTO. It's almost like, for those of you old enough to remember the Haynes manuals of how you fix cars, it's almost That's how I got through my mechanical apprenticeship, actually. It's almost like buying one of those and thinking you're a mechanic. It just isn't. Okay? So we need to evolve. We need to get more proactive. We need to be on the front foot a little bit more, and we need to ride that curve towards a more of a hunting approach, going after the bad guys instead of waiting for the bad guys to come to you. That doesn't mean a hack-back approach, by the way. That means taking a proactive approach on your network, knowing what the signs of bad are, and educating yourself on that. And if you can't educate yourself on that, partner up with somebody whilst you ramp up your education. You know, this isn't a sales alert for me. Partner up with people who are good at that stuff. Threat hunting is difficult, by the way. You know, it takes a skill. It's not a product. It's a mindset. It's a hypothesis that a threat hunter will come up with and then test. It's like the scientific method. You know, you're looking for certain things, or you're looking for absence of certain things. But what does that mean for many organizations? I'll quickly scan through this so we get to the end. This is a maturity scale. Again, for a lot of organizations I've worked with, worked for, and talked to, we're still in those bottom two left-hand sides, the architecture side of things. We might have a decent security architecture, or we think we've got a decent security architecture, and we might have some kind of passive defense, a SIEM, if you will, an outsourced third-party provider, collecting logs, not really doing anything for you, but you're compliant, right? Because compliance equals security, doesn't it? No? Okay, good. Where we need to move from a maturity point of view is over to the right-hand side. We need to get more active. We need to get more involved. You know, the one thing a business does know is what it needs to operate that business. And that can then translate into what's important to you, what you need to look out for. And if you are working with a partner, you can discuss that with the partner. It's getting a bit hot, isn't it? Just all of a sudden got a little bit hot. But you can discuss that with a partner and how that materializes itself in terms of what you need from them. Don't be afraid to ask questions of them, by the way. If they come in and go, I've got this artificial intelligence, blah, or this machine learning, blah, ask them what algorithm they use in their machine learning. Ask them the difference between AI and machine learning. Sales guys won't be able to tell you. They'll be stumped. And then you've got them then. Because then you've called them out on their bullshit that they regularly turn out, you know? And you should do it. I'm in sales. Okay, we're all in sales. No, we're not. I'm in sales, but I try and go into a customer and talk to a customer about the pains they have rather than trying to sell them on some kind of snake oil, you know? Because it's my reputation at the end of the day. I may walk out the room and they think, slightly dodgy scouser, half right. But my professional integrity is the only thing I've got in this business. You know, pin your sales guys to the wall when they come in and try and sell you that type of stuff. What more do we need to see? I think today our picture is this from a spend point of view. Most of the spend is on prevention. There's not enough on true monitoring and response capabilities. It is all about the castle analogy, the moats, the turrets, the prevention. Even though we've got a perimeterous environment now and everybody accepts that, we're still thinking that way. We're not thinking holistically. We're not thinking who's fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh link in that chain on that process that my business requires, and where are they weak and how would I spot and defend against that type of thing. A lot of the Gartners, the IDCs, the Forresters will talk about, even in this spend up, trying to spend more on true and decent monitoring that gets you to where you need to be. Try and spend a bit more on response. We all know about incident response teams, but how many actually have a decent one? How many train for this all the time? All of this stuff, it kind of having a slight semi-career as a footballer, it slightly amazes me that we do no training for cybersecurity whatsoever. We do no scenario-based training. We don't know how we're going to respond. We have a plan. It's in a drawer somewhere, but we haven't got a clue how we're going to do it once the sticky stuff hits the fan. Yes, Al?
You ask the audience. So, and I'm with you 100% on that one. But how many of us have actually got some kind of a reference architecture to simulate attacks about our enterprise? The answer is very few. Why is that? To your point, we don't do it enough, even with the technology we've got available to us.
Listen, you don't win 6 Champions Leagues by not practicing, right? No? No Blues? No? United supporters? No? Okay. But you're right. You're right. We don't do enough of it. Our cybersecurity awareness training, it consists of 1 hour once a year, right? And you should then all be experts on it. You should know what to look out for, what to do, what not to do, who to talk to. We need to do more about it. And it's us in the industry who need to be speaking to our peers and try and do it from a human point of view as well. Try not to be geeks about it. We can all fall into the geek side of things, but let's try not to be. Let's try and talk to them as professionals and human beings. It's an interesting thing. There's an economic effect called the Veblen effect. And essentially it translates into if something costs a lot, it must be really good. And I see a lot of what organizations could be doing, they could do for a lot less than they're currently doing today and do it much better than the service or the product that they're getting today. Look at Elastic, right? Look at Elk. They've just bought Endgame and they've just released the SIEM. It's all free. It's all free. There's a lot of that stuff out there. Threat hunting, bro. It's all free. Go and skill yourself up on it, go and learn, and then you will be less reliant on logs. You'll be more reliant on your knowledge. You will provide a better service to your customers, who are the business you work for. And guess what? You'll be more employable throughout the lifetime of cybersecurity. I keep telling my boy that cybersecurity wasn't available when I was a kid. When I left school to be a mechanic and fell into cybersecurity in university, John Moores University over the road there. And it just wasn't available back in 92. It's great. Just wonder what our kids are going to get into that isn't available right now. Hopefully something in Europe, but that's a different conversation altogether. Well, a little bit of politics. I was going to go all Derek Hatton on you then, but no, I won't. People, 5 minutes, thank you. So, just to back up, you guys can read that as much as I can read it out to you. My eyesight's failing as I get older as well. But just to back the types of things I've been talking about around the response, the detection, the splitting of budgets, the evening out of budgets. There's a bunch of quotes there from Gartner, Forrester, ESG and IDC. Some of it talks about the types of technologies that are reliant on logs, like SIEM type technologies. One of our customers actually calls it stupidly irrelevant electronic messaging, is what SIEM to them stands for, because they just get a barrage of alerts. And if it's red, just fire the alert off, which comes back to my earlier point, the alert fatigue side of things. You just start switching that stuff off. Not just the alerts themselves, you become anesthetized to it. So you're possibly missing stuff that you shouldn't be missing because you're anesthetized to all that nonsense that's coming through, all those false positives. Okay? And I think that's all I've got to say on that. Any questions? I'll leave 5 minutes for questions on anything.
Question.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
Ian, how well do you think we're doing our value proposition to the business, to your point about costs and whether the spend is in the right place?
Return on security investment. Ooh, rosy. That's a long time ago. I don't think we've moved the needle. If anything, I think we've regressed. I'm going to be honest with you. We have more reliance on new technologies and new approaches. By the way, cloud is no different than mainframe. For those of you who remember it, it's the same thing. Okay? And I think because of that, we are so eager to consume new groovy stuff that we're actually still not getting the basics right. You know, I talk about the basics all the time. What do the basics mean? Understand what you got connected to your network, understand who's accessing your network, and understand where it's vulnerable. And then what the threat to your network is from that. And then do stuff about it. Doesn't mean patch everything all the time, but patch your critical stuff, or at least have a fair stab at it. Right? You know? There was another question. Okay. Cool. We set that up. I'll buy you a beer afterwards. Another question?
So you're talking about the future, and you kind of given up on the idea that developers might develop less insecure applications completely? Like that's a lost cause?
Can we have a drug test? We all live in hope, right? We all live in hope. I live in hope that Claudia Schiffer's going to drive me to work in a Ferrari. It's probably not going to happen. No, it's a very fair point. Sorry to make light of it. My experience tells me that we're not going to do it anytime soon. My experience tells me that the good intentions we have in our industry. Remember, this is our industry. So we're kind of all in a room, patting each other on the back, going, aren't we great? We're great in security, blah, 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 blah. Outside, people don't give a shit. They really don't. They will do stuff and not really care. And you'll go, what about that? Oh, well, that's a bit James Bond, isn't it? No, it's not. It happened last week. So you can't even point. Maybe it's the climate we now live in, that evidence and facts are useless. Maybe it is. And absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, right? So, I would like to think we could. Let's do that. Let's you and I change the world for the better. Okay? I don't mean we have to go and live together or anything like that, but, you know, yeah, with Claudia and the Ferrari, we're in. Any other questions? One? Stu, you asleep? No? Any more for any more? Thank you very much. I'll be here all day. We'll have a pint later on. Thank you very much.